Hi, my name's Kevin Hicks. Welcome to our YouTube channel, The History Squad. Now today we're going to be looking at the more colourful side of the history of Deadwood. We're going to enter here the Shasta Rooms brothel, but we'll also be looking at some of the darker side of the history of the brothels in Deadwood. So this is not really a subject for those younger ears, so you have been warned. Now as you go up the stairs, there's a surprise waiting at the top. Come on. As you come up these steps, you're actually being watched. They want to see, is it a police raid? Are you a customer or are you a threat? That's what the window is at the top of the stairs. A whole list of rules. So you'll be met here and then escorted in to this bit of a parlour room here. You will sit down and the ladies will appear, maybe 3 or 4, 5 or 6, and they will try and entice you because it was in their own interest that they trapped you because you are their money. Now, as soon as you choose one of the ladies, she escorts you to her workroom. Then negotiations are on, money is paid. The young lady then comes back here, comes into the madame's office. Now, there will be music being played, there is alcohol. This is not just a silent room in those days, it's busy, it's vibrant. So the young lady who's been chosen, she's negotiated, she's taken the money from the client, she's come in here to the madame. The madam will receive half, 50%. The other percentage will be placed into one of the slots, and if I cheekily lift this up, you'll see each girl has her own secure box for her money. So at the end of the day, she knows exactly how much she has. And I asked the question here, so how many clients could a girl expect to service, if you want of a better word? And I was told, well, if it's a slow night, it could be 1 or 2, but if it's a fast night in Deadwood, one girl could actually service at least 20 clients. But that's not to say each one of them had full-on sex. There could be oral, straightforward sex, manual, as well as other quirky things that I'm not going to talk about here. But that's already been decided beforehand. But also some of the minors, they didn't want the sex, they wanted company. So they would spend their time talking or cuddling up. So the young lady's money is deposited. She now has to go back to the client to her workroom. Follow me. So I mentioned that the madame took 50% of the girl's fees. Some people think, oh, that's a lot of money. However, the madame, she's got to run the place, pay for the other staff, the laundry staff, that kind of thing. Also, she's got to pay off the police, keep them outside the door, except for those that are coming in for special favours, shall we say. So although she will make a profit, a good profit too, she still had to spend money. So this brothel opened in 1903, and if I remember correctly, it was still going up until about 1980. So as you can see, the floorboards into this workroom are actually quite worn, but this is decked out as an early workroom. So you have the old-fashioned bed, but there's an interesting thing for me. Here you have this screen, because the original brothels of Deadwood were in tents, or in the corner of a tent there would be a brothel, and they simply had screens put to one side, and the young lady who was up for hire, shall we say, they called them soiled doves, she would operate behind there. People turned a blind eye or just accepted it. Now, I did a tour here and they were talking about this, and I immediately thought about when I was in the Royal Military Police in Berlin. There were certain bars in the red light districts of Berlin. This is 1976, the late 70s, mid to late 70s, where you could be sat there having a pint. And there were booths with just a curtain across, and a girl would come in off the street or from the bar with a chap, lead him in there, and while you're having a drink, trying to talk to your friend, they will get on with the business, and a few minutes later, out they would come, the man looking flush, the girl looking for her next client. And this just illustrates, you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of these miners working in the hills, working flat out for a couple of weeks, then they'll come down, they've made some money, they need some relief. But these men would be filthy. So they have a basin here and some soap, and this was called a Peter Pan. This was where the client, shall we say, would have to get out his appendages and wash them and present them to the lady concerned, just so she can inspect and make sure that you are clean and there are no visible signs of disease. The Peter Pan. I will never look at the Peter Pan story the same ever again. So we have another workroom here, but there we have a life figure of Dora Dufran. She was a madam. She ended up being sued for an abortion that went wrong. But when you look at Dora, she cared for the girls. From what I can tell, was if they'd fallen pregnant, she would help them with the birth. If they were up for an abortion, she would do it, although she wasn't qualified. But she generally cared for the girls. And that is something I didn't think about, was this place would be full of children. They'd be running around. All of the working girls here, many of them would have had children, because especially in the early years, the lack of contraception, there were contraceptives around, but they were expensive or they were difficult. They would do their best. And later on, of course, contraception in the 60s, 50s, 60s and on, that was not a problem. But in the early years, people like Dora Dufran were vital in running these places and keeping the girls safe, which is different to the brothel that's across the road. You had the Gem Variety Theatre. People loved the acts that they had on there, and it was quite a draw. There was a saloon, there was gambling, the theatre, they put on big shows. There was an 8-year-old performer there who drew in great crowds, and there was lots of profits to be made. But it was on the second floor that things were quite dark. That was the brothel. Now, the guy who built the place, who owned the place, Al Swearingen. Now, in the HBO series Deadwood, he's a likable rogue. But in real life, no, he wasn't. He was awful. Now, Al wasn't very tall, not that good to look at, stocky. His hair was greased down, his moustache was greased down. But from what I can gather reading about this guy, he was a misogynist. He hated women. Even though he was married, mind you, his wife would actually leave him. He would beat the girls who worked for him, and he encouraged the guys who worked for him to beat them as well. The clients were encouraged to do what they wanted to with the girls. So the girls from the Gem Saloon there, they were often seen with black eyes, swollen lips, all of these kind of things. And many of them, they never intended to come to Deadwood to be a prostitute. They came here as a singer or as a dancer. But Swearingen, he then got them in there. They got no money, no means of getting away, no means of even putting food in their mouth. So that's when he turned them into prostitution. And in Deadwood itself, the good people of Deadwood, because just up the road was Deadwood, down here it was called the Badlands. Those people up there often spirited away, kidnapped the girls before Swearingen could actually get his talons into them. A nasty piece of work, and he died a violent death. 1903, 1904, Denver in Colorado. He was found on the railway tracks. He'd been hit over the head and run over by a train. I like that. So when you move up to the 1960s and 70s, that's what this room is decked out with. You've got the maid's outfit, handcuffs on the bed, that kind of thing. But the girls who worked in this brothel in those days, they were here not because of a situation that forced them to do it. They're here to make money. And we've got the story of one young lady called Smokey, photographs here, where she made enough money, I believe, in 2 years to put herself through university, UCLA, and come out qualified at the end of it. Now, that straight away struck a chord with me, because there I was in Berlin, British military police, smart as a carrot, we used to say, with me red cap and my uniform and the white belt and everything. And I'm driving down 17th of Unistrasse in Berlin, and you used to have a regular patrol of young ladies, prostitutes, but there'd been a murder of one of them. So we were told, keep an eye, watch out for them. Now these girls were legal, it was legal in Berlin. And as I pull alongside, there's 4 or 5 absolute gorgeous looking young ladies. I was quite intimidated by them, but I got out of my police car, walked over to them, and I says, Guten Abend, good evening in German. And these girls turn around to me and says, hello, how are you? They were English. You could have knocked me down with a feather. I says, hello girls. I says, what are you doing here? And they says, oh, we come every year. And I'm looking at them and I says, what, work in the streets? Yeah, 2 weeks. And that gives us enough to live pretty much for the rest of the year. I'm going to buy a car with my money, says the one girl. So I then got talking to one of them later over a cup of coffee. That's all it was, a cup of coffee. And I says, seriously, during the summer holidays, you come over here for 2 weeks? She says, yeah, we can pick our clients. We can actually just have a good time. And I am the one who's going to buy a new car with me money. I says, what do you do with the rest of your life? She was a school teacher and she was happy. So the last room I'm going to show you is this one here. It's not a workroom. This is a room where one of the young ladies could actually live. This kind of reflects how the madame felt for her girls. It was a tight-knit community. They were together. They could often be seen in Deadwood on their day off, if you like, as a group of well-dressed girls going to the shops. But if a girl is on hard times, got nowhere to live, a room in the brothel, or the madame might have an apartment somewhere or other rooms where they could stay. And this is a positive side to this seedy side of life, I suppose. Almost the camaraderie between the girls. It's wonderful, a tight-knit community. But if you look up, all of these internal rooms, they've got no windows. So there used to be a skylight. But unfortunately, the local lads of Deadwood would find their ways onto the roof and they would peer down through the skylight, which of course would put off some of the punters while they're about their business. So they blocked them up so the lads couldn't have a free show. Me personally, I would have been up there and charged them extra for that show. Well, I hope you enjoyed our little video of the seedier side of life in Deadwood, South Dakota. If you did, like, share and subscribe. And if ever you fancy a tour around this place, I've already done one. It's great. The link is in the description. Now, before I go, a quick shout out to some of my Patreon members. Here we go. Joel Belding, Peter Wilson, Pat O'Connell. Hey guys, thanks a million. Bye for now.